I'm a massive natural skeptic about all this stuff. And you'll see why in the next quick hit.
And speaking of Al Hilal, he could have teamed up or played under Simone Inzaghi, who walked out on Inter on Tuesday and decided to join Al Hilal. Gab, you didn't think it would happen?
No, I genuinely didn't think it would happen because I think he's entitled to do what he wants. But I think this is a walkout on a team that wanted to keep you because you get paid a ton of money. And by the way, from Bruno Fernandes' perspective and the certainty that it would happen and the way Al Hilal is run, you're going to go and offer this mega deal to Bruno Fernandes and you expect him to say yes without knowing who the next coach is because this offer dates back more than a week.
Yeah.
And we know for a fact Simone didn't actually go and commit until...
But he didn't say no either. So they could have said to Bruno, listen, we've got negotiation with Inzaghi. He looks quite keen.
Okay, so then make sure that it's Simone Inzaghi who rocks up and not Eric Ten Hag. Well, it wouldn't be Eric Ten Hag.
No,
and not some guy who I think is rubbish. And then, but whatever the situation, it was funny because they prepared this ad for him, which they actually shot in Paris immediately after the Champions League final, where everything about the ad looks good. First of all, Simone is not a cinematic looking guy.
Yeah.
He just does not look that way. But he's walking through some fancy hotel.
In Paris.
In Paris,
so
yes.
he went to Paris just to shoot this ad.
He went to Paris just to shoot this ad,
wow.
Yes. And you hear this music coming, you hear commentary coming from the radio about Inzaghi, but it's not him. It's his brother. It's Pippo Inzaghi scoring the second goal in the Champions League final in Athens against Liverpool. They describe him, they obviously show him with the espresso because, hey, look, that's all we do is drink espresso in Italy. And he's described as the Italian genius, which I don't think anybody's ever called Simone Inzaghi the Italian genius. So whatever, good luck to him, good luck to his money. It is, I think, really disappointing from a sporting perspective. But anyway, it's done.
It's done.
Cesc Fabregas and Roberto De Zerbi are two of the guys most often mentioned for the Inter gig. Jules, who would you go for out of those two?
I think it's a great question, Gab. I think they're two good candidates for different reasons. Obviously, at different stages in their own career as managers, right? Because for Cesc, it's only the beginning, and he did great at Como, like Thiago Motta did great at Bologna. That doesn't mean that you can make the step up to a team like Inter or Juventus, especially a rebuilding team like Inter, certainly in some parts of that squad, and follow the footsteps of Simone Inzaghi and just do this, and it's going to work. So it would be more good luck to Cesc, who I think can do it. I'm not saying he can't do it. I think he's a bright young coach, but he's still very much learning. For De Zerbi, I think Marseille were really hoping that the threat from Italy to come and get him was gone after Milan. Obviously chose Allegri. After Juventus seems to be choosing to keep Tudor. After Conte stayed at Napoli, they thought, okay, we're good now. Nobody from Italy, no club from Italy are going to come and try to get him. Well, I think if De Zerbi and Inter come knocking, it's hard to turn it down.
I'm going to say, I'm a huge Cesc. I think these are two guys who've got tremendous managerial futures.
Yeah.
I'm not sure either one is right for Inter the way Inter are right now. And I just say this about Cesc. He's hugely impressive. He's humble. He speaks extremely well. I've had the privilege of knowing the guy for 15 years. However, let's not forget, he did well at Como, 10th place. They were the fourth biggest spending team by net spend in all of Europe in doing so. So he had a tremendous amount of resources as well. Sure.
UEFA expected to weigh in on their financial stability rules next week. Gab, who is likely to be affected?
Well, I think we know it's extremely likely that Chelsea and Aston Villa will have found to have breached financial fair play, and they're going to reach a settlement agreement, which will likely see them fined. I think that's the most logical understanding. UEFA seem to have moved away from any more serious sanctions. Barcelona are in a tougher situation because some of those one-off sales that they've made about sort of future stadium rights and whatever, UEFA don't treat them as normal income the way La Liga does, but they treat them as exceptional items. So they could be facing potentially a fine, potentially a reduction in squad size, theoretically another block on transfers, which, by the way, they'll need to, I guess, unblock the block on transfers like they get from La Liga. So, it's messy. More United movements. Jason Wilcox is getting a promotion and Dave Braillesford is stepping back. Jules, does this mean anything other than one fewer bald guy?
I've said it from the beginning. I was not keen on what Braillesford did at Nice. I just don't think he had what it took, him coming from the cycling world. I'm not saying that if you're not from the football world, you can't succeed in football. I'm just saying it's more difficult. And I just don't think he had it at Nice. He made big blunders. I don't think he had it even less at United, considering the size of the club and the size of the task for him and for Ratcliffe and all their team, Jean-Claude Blanc, etc., but Omar Barada too. I don't think he had it, so I'm not surprised he's stepping back. I don't know exactly how much he contributed, but whatever he did, clearly, for him to step back, knowing the guy a little bit, shows that clearly he didn't feel like he was contributing enough and doing the right things. For Jason Wilcox, I don't know him at all, so I'm not sure if he's earned this promotion, if he deserves it, if he's going to do a good job. I guess he will be now the head of recruitment, and it will be down to him. So Mbomo Cunha is on him. So let's see what kind of summer he has.
Well, Jason Wilcox, of course, was he would have been a very good wing back.
The player,
Amorim's,
as a sporting director, we don't know.
But I think what's important at any club, I mean, there was a moment, if you remember, when United had Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada, Braillesford, and Wilcox. It's fine to have a lot of people. You're a big club, but you're only going to recruit so many players. And I think it's really important to have a clear hierarchy and clear accountability in terms of who reports to who. And Omar Barada is the CEO, the numbers, maybe he does the negotiations, I assume. Wilcox heads up the recruitment staff.
Yeah.
If you have then Braillesford in the mix too, and he seemed to be maybe whispering into Ratcliffe's ear or whatever else, that's not a good situation.
Yeah. Oh, John Textor, our favorite friend, Gab, is he screwing everything up for Crystal Palace?
All right, I'll do it. It's time! It's time! It's Textor time! Look, it's not his fault. I actually have a lot of sympathy here. But this is a situation, like we told you. You cannot have two clubs with the same ownership playing in the same UEFA competition unless you put one of them in a blind trust, which basically means that you have no control over the shares in the club for a year. So obviously that's what Olympiacos, so Mr. Marinakis.
So many clubs have done this,
Nice and Manchester United and so on, right? The difficulty here, though, is that obviously Palace and Lyon have both qualified for the Europa League. He's been to UEFA this week with Palace saying, look, you need to make an exception in this case because I don't really have any control. Yes, I have 43% of the shares, but I have no control because look, Blitzer and Harris, who always operate together, between them they have 50%. Steve Parish has the other 25%. Andy has a tie-breaking vote. My 43%, because of whatever weirdo deal he negotiated, I only have 25% of the say, and there's different facilities and all the other stuff. Now, are UEFA going to buy this or not? For Textor, he wants them to buy it because otherwise he's going to be in a really tricky position because otherwise his presence, his existence could ban Crystal Palace from playing in the Europa League, which seems extraordinary.
Can he put Lyon in a blind trust?
He can't put Lyon in a blind. He would have to put Palace in a blind trust because Lyon finished higher. But also the other issue is he doesn't want to put anything in a blind trust because he wants to list Eagle Football, his group, on the New York Stock Exchange. And to do that, they have to show X amount of assets. And if I'm putting an asset, if I'm trying to put an asset that I'm trying to sell to you, I have to have control and tell you that I'm selling you this asset, Jules, so you have some control over it. If it's in a blind trust where it's owned by third parties, then I don't have any control over it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So his options are he can either sell his shares in double quick time, but that's not going to happen. He's been trying to sell his shares forever. He could try to buy out Steve Parish, Harris, and Blitzer. That ain't going to happen.
No.
They thought that maybe Palace could drop into the Conference League, but that's not going to happen because Brøndby from Denmark, of course, are in the Conference League. And guess who owns them? David Blitzer.
Yeah.
So he's going to say no to that. Also, they're going to make a lot less money in the Conference League. So we're heading towards an impasse here. I don't know if the other Palace owners can force him. Listen, we don't care about your stupid IPO. Yeah. For the good of Palace, you have to put this in a blind trust.
Yeah.
So I have some sympathy. You have some sympathy for JT?
Yeah, I understand. Although Well, it seems that they realized this was a mess quite late when we could have told you that 6 months ago almost that there was a risk that this could happen.
I don't know. Maybe they thought that Lyon were going to be relegated in the D
Or make Champions League, yeah, maybe.
I don't or make Champions League. Yeah, he likes to think positive, that JT.
The Premier League, we're going to meet to close the loophole that allows club owners to sell assets to themselves in order to balance the books. Gab, I guess this didn't happen?
That's right, it did. And this is all prompted by the sale of the Chelsea hotels where Chelsea Football Club sell the hotels to Blueco, which is the holding company that owns Chelsea, and also the sale of the Chelsea women's team. It seems obvious to me that you would close this loophole, so also to bring the rules in line with the UEFA rules, right? Because UEFA rules say you cannot do this. It didn't happen. It didn't even come to a vote because the Premier League aren't going to present this to a vote unless they know they have enough votes to win, right? Because otherwise they look stupid.
Yeah.
Although the fact that we're talking about it and say, hey, you don't have enough support for this.
True, it's already stupid.
What? Yeah. What I've been told is that it's because some clubs are saying, wait a minute, this doesn't apply retroactively. So we're not stupid. Chelsea benefited from this. If we pass this law now, then we won't get to benefit from it in future. It's kind of disappointing. I think every league needs good governance as an example of good governance. This should not be allowed. Yeah. They should close the loophole. And people should say it's more important that we have a well-run league where people play for the rules rather than my own interests, frankly.
US President Donald Trump announced a travel ban for citizens of 12 countries, including Iran. Gab, should Mehdi Mehdi be concerned and all his teammates and all their fans after qualifying for the World Cup? And will he be joining Grealish on the golf course as well?
Well, most of his teammates at Inter are not Iranian, so I think they're fine. You're talking about the Club World Cup.
Yeah, of course. They would be in, but what about him? Or it doesn't apply to
It does not
celebrities.
apply to sporting figures. There's a specific...
Right.
By the way, this is where you realize that however much people made fun of Gianni Infantino for sucking up to Donald Trump, it was time well spent because there's a specific carve-out for FIFA competitions as well as the Olympics. I think this is more relevant to the Club World Cup because who knows 2026 World Cup, what it's going to be like. What it does mean is an issue for fans, though, because there is no carve-out for fans. So if Iran qualify for the World Cup, unless the president changes his mind and tightens up the order, the team can all go and the delegates and blah, blah, blah. The fans can't go. Now, it's okay because there are an enormous amount of Iranian Americans in some cities, but obviously it is an issue. It's an issue if it's extended to other nations. Like I said, the World Cup is, the big World Cup is like a year away. So let's not worry about that. The immediate concern was the Club World Cup, and Mehdi Taremi is going to be just fine.
Yeah. And sticking with the Club World Cup, no, that's you for me.
Yes, sticking with the Club World Cup, The Athletic reports that ticket sales aren't great.
I mean,
they have some numbers here for you to list.
Yeah, but I don't want to criticize that. So there are games where the two teams are not great on paper, certainly, or that a lot of people in the US would not know or even probably have heard of, that we're always going to be a difficult sell, right? To everyone, even if for anybody, right? And why sometimes are those games played in 60,000 seater stadiums or 65,000 seater stadium where you could easily have picked maybe a city with a smaller ground, 25,000. There are MLS stadiums for 25,000 seaters.
Well, a good example is DC, where they are playing games at, I think it's called Audi Field, which I think is like 18,000 or 20,000.
Which is perfect for some games. I'm not saying that you should play a final between, I don't know, Real Madrid and PSG there. But for some games, it would be worth it.
So the one that they cite specifically here, June 14th.
The opening game.
The opening game. Al Ahly against Inter Miami. In Miami.
Yeah.
With that Lionel Messi
that
fella.
Guy and the others.
The prices, they say, have gone down. They are 1/6 what they were originally. They have dynamic pricing. They say there's tens of thousands of unsold tickets right now. And we're what, like 9 days away, 10 days away?
10 days away, yeah.
We've always been sold on this idea that in the US they can sell everything. They're so good at marketing and whatever. Something's gone badly wrong here if we're in this situation.
Absolutely. And I agree. And I really think that putting some of those games in those massive stadiums just didn't help at all.
Maybe the argument should have been, maybe Inter Miami shouldn't have been playing in Miami because people would go watch Messi somewhere else.
Yeah,
maybe.
absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Gab, yesterday marked 180 days since the independent panel in the case of Manchester City and the 115 charges began their deliberations. Why is it taking them so long?
I have no idea. I assume it's because there's a lot of, I'm purely speculating here, but there's a lot of legal actions that have been taken, and they have to look at this and make it watertight, blah, 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 whatever the judgment is. What I find super interesting is that, first of all, I am pretty satisfied that neither the Premier League nor Manchester City know anything at all about this process. Remember Guardiola, in the next month it'll come out. And we've had other people saying well, in March it should come out. You guys don't know anything. You know nothing. And that's good. That's the way it should be, right? It should be the 3 judges, lawyers, and nobody else, right? Well, not even the lawyers. That was just the 3 judges by themselves, reviewing the evidence. So that part is encouraging. What I find hilarious, though, is I read in the last 24 hours, both an article, very well sourced by somebody very knowledgeable, talking about the fact that it's going so long, that it's taking so long, means that City are likely to be found innocent of most of the charges. And somebody else saying the fact that it's taken so long means that City are likely to have been found guilty of the charges.
Okay.
I don't know. If I were super cynical and didn't have faith in the process, I might suggest that maybe it's because the Premier League and Manchester City are trying to negotiate some settlement in the background privately.
Yes.
But then again, I'm not that cynical, so I wouldn't suggest that. And there's been no suggestion that they're doing
It could be that, yeah.
Russell Martin is the new manager of Glasgow Rangers. Jules, I wasn't expecting this. Were you?
Well, we knew he was on the short list with...
we knew he was on the short list.
Yeah, on the short list.
With other people who didn't seem viable, like Brian Priskin and Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, and Davide Ancelotti, who
did seem viable.
Well, but who has no experience of English football at all, for example.
But Scotland.
No experience, but of British football, if you want. No experience of first-team football either. So you could see the pros and cons, I think, for Davide, who would have been our pick for sure if we'd been running Glasgow Rangers. But Russell Martin apparently was very, very convincing in his interviews with the Rangers board and had prepared really well. Then he had a clear vision of what he wanted to do. It's a tough situation considering how dominant Celtic and Brendan Rodgers have been for the last 10 seasons or so, or something like that. I don't know. So it's not going to be easy.
I can't erase the Southampton experience. Obviously, he did well to get them up. But when we talk about clear vision of what he wants to do, I will never forget. I forget who they were playing against, but I will never forget the situation where they're a goal down. And obviously, he loves his possession.
Yeah.
He sends on that Onuachu guy, the guy who's like 11 feet tall.
Yeah.
And it's deep in injury time, and it's sideways pass to sideways pass to sideways pass. If this is his clear vision, it's not a clear vision you want to have.
No. I don't think that's the vision at all. But it's clearly that he struggled in the Premier League. That doesn't mean he's going to struggle in the SPL either. You know.
I don't know.
I wish him good luck. I think I like managers with these kind of ideas. Let's see if it's realistic to do it at Rangers against Celtic, for example.
I think he's a handsome man with a very fetching beard who obviously interviewed very well and did a good job in the championship. But in the championship with Southampton, with an absolutely loaded team with talent at the time when they came up. Yeah.
Gab, we love to check in on this story occasionally. Please tell me that the £2 billion from the sale of Chelsea that was supposed to go in humanitarian help to Ukraine aren't still sitting in the bank account somewhere in the UK?
Yeah, they're still sitting in Roman Abramovich's bank account. They have not been released. We'd like to update you about the story. There is a development, which is the government, in fact, the Foreign Minister of the UK, David Lammy, and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, have both come out and said, we're going to sue if this money isn't released. And obviously...
Who will they sue?
I guess they're going to sue... They're going to sue the company that... They're going to sue, I think it's called Fordstam, the Abramovich's company, where this money's in the frozen accounts. Roman Abramovich's camp have said, no, the reason we haven't released the funds is because we wanted to go to victims of the war in Ukraine, and that includes Russians and so on. It seems like a slight distinction. It is absurd that when you force the guy to sell the club, which is what they did, right? He owned the club, his club. Somebody comes along without, by the way, a legal process where they put him on trial and saying you were colluding with Vladimir Putin, blah, 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 to do this and that, without arguing that case or proving it. They take the money away. He agrees, presumably so they don't go after him. And he says, but I want this money used for this charity, that you don't specify exactly the terms with which you're going to release it. But, we've already made that point.
Yeah.
But it is such an embarrassing situation. Mehdi Earps and Fran Kirby have retired from international football. Millie Bright has taken a pause. None of these women are going to be in the England team at the upcoming Euros. That you'll be there covering it in Switzerland for us.
Yeah.
I bet England boss Serena Wiegman appreciates the advance warning.
Yeah, I think there are 3 different cases, obviously, and today on Thursday, later this afternoon, Wiegman will announce a squad for the Euros, the big Euros for them. They're obviously the holders of it. Mary Herbs was told she was going to be a number 2, and she didn't want to be the number 2 of the national team, so she preferred to retire than to actually be the backup of the goalkeeper. Fran Kirby, I think the writing was on the wall already that she was not going to be picked and she could retire. For Millie Bright, it's obviously a sad situation because she didn't feel that physically or mentally she was ready to be in the squad and be there at the Euros and give her best for the national team. And I'm sure it's heartbroken that she announced that she told Serena Wiegman that she could not go. She had a long season, a tough season, and she said that she just needed a bit of a break, which we can all understand, obviously. So Millie Bright especially is a big loss for England because she's the best defender for me. She would have been a starter every day. For Herbs, clearly now she was a number 2, and Frank
didn't that happen at
not.
club level too, where things didn't quite work out with her since leaving Manchester United? Mary Earps.
She went to PSG and she had I don't think she had a bad season there, but
I thought she was in and out, but I could be.
Yeah, she was a bit in and out, but not. She played in the Champions League, for example, and things like that. But she was not. I don't think she had a bad season either, but she was certainly not the best goalkeeper in the world, like she was named the year before last. And I think Hampton has done really well for England and deserves to be the number 1 there. So we've seen players, didn't we, once told they would not be starting or would not be key players anymore, decided to retire from international football. I don't think it's something you should be doing. You should always be at the service of your country.
I was thinking about this. From a major tournament when you're the defending champion, I don't think that's happened. I don't think that happens very often. Millie Bright's a different situation.
Yeah,
I think
Bright
she
is
says
different.
I think mental health is really, really important. And if she's come out and she talks about this, that's a bit different, right? But I am a bit surprised. We're told how competitive everybody, professional athletes are and whatever else. You are the defending champion. Your national team's done so much for you. I think without England at the last Euros, most people wouldn't know who Mary Earps was. To say no, I don't want to go because I don't want to compete for the job. What if the starter gets injured?
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think it's disappointing.
And it's not something. I don't know. I'm curious. Has there been any backlash in the?
I don't think so. And again, I don't think she was in the position where people would see the controversy and start saying like, why has Serena Wiegman made that decision? I think she's not the best England goalkeeper right now. So in fairness, I don't think there's much else you can say. She didn't want to be a number 2. She's good enough just to be a number 2 right now, not number 1. So she doesn't want to be part of it. She doesn't want to be part of it. I remember the only close case I can remember. I'm sure there's been another one for France before. I just can't. But Adrien Rabiot was a reserve in the squad for the World Cup and didn't want to be a reserve, so he said to Deschamps, "Don't count me in."
But he wasn't in the 23.
No, but he was the next name up if somebody would get injured, and he said, "No, I don't want to be that. Don't count on me. I'm going on holidays," and that's it. So. But I'm sure there's been another one with France before that I can't remember right now.
The famous one, Johan Cruyff, 1978, the World Cup in Argentina over bonuses and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that was different reasons. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was different reasons. Yeah, it wasn't because I don't know. It's an interesting one. I think it also speaks to some of the differences in the way the media when you have a certain amount of media glare and a certain backlash. I'll be really curious to see whether anybody gives Mary Earps a hard time about this or whether most people won't care.
IFAB have announced a common sense rule change, Gab. What could that be?
The whole double touch thing. Remember Julien Alvarez on the penalties? So the rules, and I can't believe we've gone, more than 100 years of football without anybody kind of noticing. This is kind of This is not what the rule was assigned to do.
Yeah.
If you take a penalty, you can only hit the ball once. You can't hit it forward, pass it to yourself, blah, 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 right? We know this. But then, and I guess this wouldn't have been an issue before VAR or before, they had like the assistants kind of staring and looking for this. If you have a double touch, which might happen if you slip when you take it. So you hit the ball and hit it again, like Julien Alvarez famously did.
Or Messi in the World Cup final. Can we replay that World Cup final? No, because that penalty, double touch the penalty, so it should not have counted.
Well, that's not what VAR found.
Well, no, they didn't even look at it. But they should have, because he used to double touch, so it should not have been in. So it should have.
If VAR doesn't see it, it didn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. But we all know that it happened.
They saw it with Julien Alvarez.
Yeah.
And the result was a disallowed goal. So now what they're going to, or disallowed penalty. Now they said, you're going to retake the penalty, the double touch, which is, if we think the double touch was unintentional.
Exactly.
Right, which I think is common sense.
Yeah.
Well done, IFAB. Took you a while, but you got there. Will Still is gone at Lens. He's coming over here, in fact.
Yeah.
So our boy, Joseph Ogurlian, is turning to Stonewise Piersage. You like this, don't you,
I like this. I told Joseph to go for Stonewise too, because he did a really good job at Lyon, was sacked by our friend JT, John
this
Textor.
Is like the fifth John Textor reference
and there's
to the
more
show.
to come even. By John Textor, without us really knowing why Pierre Sage got sacked. Didn't make much sense at the time, but he had like a great year for Lyon, really. He took them, they were bottom of the table and qualified them for Europe. Then they were still in the race for the Champions League places when he was sacked, and they ended up missing out, by the way, under Fonseca. So I like Pierre Sage a lot. I rate him. A lot of people rate him in France. He had other offers, like Nantes, for example, and he chose Lens. I think it's a wise choice for him and a wise choice from Lens. So I think he's going to do well there. And Gab, finally, one more John Textor reference, right? How about Joaquin Correa joining Botafogo? What could go wrong here?
Okay, so first of all, I am absolutely shocked that this move is going through. I would have thought that since Simone Inzaghi takes El Tucu Correa everywhere he goes, I would have thought he'd be on his way to Al Hilal.
Yeah.
Probably not to play, but I don't know. Maybe he could lay out the cones, join Inzaghi's coaching staff. I don't know. Joaquin Correa is one of those mysteries of football because you see the guy and he's tall. He's got tremendous technique. He's an elegant dribbler. He can actually get around the pitch when he wants to.
Yeah.
So you figure, man, this guy's going to be really good. And then every time he plays, not every time, but generally. He literally stinks up the pace, right?
No desire, it looks like. No hunger.
I hate to bring this up, the hunger, the body language. I think hunger, body language, I think they're stupid things that ex-pros bring up when they're on television when a good player's playing badly. That's my general sense, right? And it often is. If the guy doesn't look like them, if he's not snarling, then whatever, then he doesn't, body language is all wrong. But with this guy, it's a different story. It's the same thing when he went to France, right? He wasn't good.
He wasn't good for Marseille, no?
He had his moments, some moments at Lazio. Contributed absolutely almost nothing to Inter this year. So I'm glad he's left Inter. This Botafogo adventure. JT, you might have to go and kick some backside over there to get El Tucu Correa playing. But who knows? Maybe he's closer to home. Maybe he's closer to Tucumán or wherever he's from. And, he'll perform. Two Belgian TikTokers hid in the Allianz Arena toilets for 27 hours to sneak into the Champions League final jewels. I bet you're grateful we didn't need to do that.
No, we didn't need to. I mean, this is a pretty incredible story. They came in the day before the final. They wore this high-vis, is that what we say in English? High-vis jacket to pretend they were kind of workers, all the people that prepared the things for the final. And then went into the toilet each, so not the same one, with a bag with snacks and stuff. And they stayed in that toilet cubicle, I guess. They put a handmade poster on the door saying that the toilet was out of order. And then they stayed in there for 27 hours. And when they started hearing the next day some fans arriving and using the toilet, they knew that the gates had opened and people had coming in the stadium for the final. So they came out and they said it was very hard because you could not obviously get comfy and sleep, or you had to sit down. The light was always on. So it can't have been nice 27 hours, but hey, they got to see the final.
So that part about them complaining that they couldn't sleep because it's hard to sleep sitting down with the lights. I'm like, dude, you get one of those face masks they give you on the airplane. You block out the light. And also, when it's the middle of the night, I think it's pretty safe. Nobody's patrolling the Allianz Arena
Maybe
toilets.
not, yeah.
Like you can get, I don't know, sleep on the floor of the toilet and like go back
Still
inside.
not the most comfy. That's
No,
to be fair.
still
But,
not
like,
the
you
most
know.
comfortable person. I don't necessarily want to celebrate this too much because
Yeah, you should not be doing it. Let's be clear.
it's not just, but what's going to happen is then you get more draconian security measures, which make it more of a pain in the butt for
True.
normal fans to get into the ground. I mean, I think we
yeah.
always need to weigh that against this.
Yeah. Gab, how about shout out to Platense, who become champions of Argentina for the first time in their 120 years anniversary history. Even.
So in my old age, I am increasingly liking playoffs more. So Platense, obviously one of the smaller clubs. They're from Buenos Aires. They have the best nickname. Do you know what it is?
Yeah.
Los Calamares.
Oh,
the squids.
the
How cool is that? So obviously they have the Apertura and Clausura there.
Yeah.
They finished sixth. They went into the playoffs and they beat everybody away from home. They beat all the big clubs and they win this. And this is something that's going to stay with them. I think it's a good story. I don't know. People might say, "Oh, look, but we have the FA Cup and
But
whatever for this kind of thing."
It's the season. Palace win the first thing in 120 years. Newcastle 71 years. Even Spurs to an extent.
Paris Saint-Germain winning the Champions League.
Bologna. PSG, of course, for the first time in I don't know how many years. So this is the season for those incredible drought to end.
All right. So does that mean Mamelodi Sundowns, whose president I interviewed, they should be coming up very soon, does it mean they're going to win the Club World Cup? Stay tuned and find out. Jules, we're going to come back on Monday after the Nations League final. Either Spain or France as we record this against Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal. Until then, love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself.